the omnipotent good. Today I would like to continue my series, How to Know a Person, inspired by David Brooks' book of that same title. Today, this part 3, and I'll give a plug, don't miss the conclusion next week. This part 3 poses the question that sometimes is challenging or hard to swallow. The question, how were you shaped by your sufferings? Now, suffering is not a word that we often use in our unity churches. Some feel that, well, that's a little negative. But I like to remember suffering comes from Middle English. And you know what it means? To suffer something? It means to experience it, to live it, to walk through it. So it's a perfectly good word, in my opinion. It's just acknowledging the fullness of our life, of our experience, is more than the proverbial bowl full of cherries, all the good and fun, pretty little things in life. It is the fullness of life experience. We suffer life. In unity, we like to claim that whatever we do, let us do it in full consciousness, in full awareness, clear about how we're moving forward. That makes all the difference. David Brooks writes, beautifully as he does, to know a person well, you have to know who they were before they suffered their losses and how they remade their whole outlook after them. If a subtext of this book is that experience is not what happened to you, it's what you do with what happens to you, then one of the subsequent lessons is that to know someone who has grieved, you have to know how they have processed their loss. Did they emerge wiser, kinder, stronger? Or were they still in a place of being broken, stuck, scared? To be a good friend and a good person, you have to know how to accompany someone through this process. And I'll be so bold to add my own words to those of David Brooks. I would add that we accompany someone in this process not with judgment or advice, but with a compassionate presence to the grieving person. Be with them. Don't avoid them and what they are suffering. And allow them space that they may find their way forward in life. Rabbi Harold Kushner wrote the book, When Bad Things Happen to Good People. And notice the title gives you the key to the whole book. He didn't write, why do bad things happen? He wrote, when bad things happen to good people. Rabbi Kushner's son, Aaron, died at the age of 14. Kushner said he spent years since that death of his son reflecting on how tragedy has shaped him and studying how other people are remade by their sufferings. Kushner reflected, I am a more sensitive person, a more effective pastor, a more sympathetic counselor because of my son's life and death than that I would ever have been without that. And I would give up all those gains if in a second I could have my son back. If I could choose, I would forego all the spiritual growth and depth which has come my way because of this experience. But I cannot choose. I cannot choose. The longest and most complex drama in the Hebrew and Christian scriptures is the story of Job. If you've never read it, it's like one of my lessons, 42 chapters of drama. Job, as many of us know, suffers greatly and repeatedly, but yet still he praises God. Even his wife in all this trouble said, just curse God and die and be done with it. Well, Job doesn't listen. And he said, God gives and God takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Job cannot understand the injustice of bad things that have befallen him until at last he realizes that he sees only in part, whereas God sees everything and all time. Job went on with life, however it unfolded before him. Job's story reminds us of the Buddhist philosophy that all human suffering comes from expectations and attachments to a certain outcome in our life. And it doesn't always happen that way. You know that clever little saying, life is what happens while you're making plans. It just is. Dr. Carl Jung, in his famous book, An Answer to Job, where he thoroughly studied this great biblical drama, gleaning from it deep insight. But a couple of Jung's ideas that stuck with me are, can we be grateful to God just because? Or do we have to receive God's happy blessings in order to cultivate gratitude? Can you be grateful for your existence? Grateful for this day? Or is your gratitude very dependent on the refreshments we serve afterwards downstairs? Or what is in your bank account when you look at it tomorrow, Monday morning? Think about it. Try to call forth gratitude for life without thinking of all the blessings. Pope Leo XIV recounted recently, which I found very powerful, that in his younger years, his life was changed when he met a woman whose son had been killed, yet she was cooking for her neighbors who were hungry. He said witnessing that shifted his whole life, and in his case, his whole approach to ministry. And now we know where he is in his new role. Our unity motto, we find it on our sign out front. It's on the signs of most unity churches around the country and even the world. A positive path for spiritual living. Well, I invite you to make that motto your own, reshaping it however you have to. I like to say, a creative, personal path for ongoing life. In other words, unity endeavors to give us tools or techniques or methods or spiritual practices that help us listen, as a teacher used to say to me, listen, that help us not to ignore or discount or not feel hard times in our life, but gives us a creative direction that we can move forward, that we can continue to live. Like the grandmother that the Pope was talking about, her son's gone, but she still finds the strength to cook because there are people hungry in her immediate neighborhood. There's a story I've told before, but you know how I like to repeat stories. It has such a great catchphrase. A woman who had lost the love of her life was just totally lost, and her friends were very concerned about her. And she said, I loved him so. All the light of my life is gone. Well, her close friends didn't see her for a while. She was rather reclusive. And one day they ran into her in the city, and she was beaming. And she told her friends, I've met someone. I struck another match. She struck another match to create life. Does that mean she no longer grieves the loss? That she no longer feels or misses that individual in life? Of course not. But she also found this way to step forward, to take another step, even though it wasn't easy, and nobody should tell her that it's easy. So I pose this question: can we simply accept and live with the givenness of hard times and then determine our personal way forward? What is right for us? And can we be present to a friend or even a stranger who is suffering loss and say to them, let's take a walk and use our unity method that I often like to remind us of with that person that's grieving. Show up, pay attention, and respond in love. Did you hear in that practice, there's no mention of give them advice, fix their life, tell them what to do. No, it's show up, be present to them. Pay attention, listen to their story. Listen to their heartbrokenness. And then respond in love. Be with them. Hear them. And as our prayer chaplains say, I love this concept. You know, all during the week, they lead prayer services here, and they consider your prayer requests and hold them in what is called spiritual space. And we sit in the silence in the sanctuary, creating through our focus upon God's presence a spiritual space where we can hold the concerns of ourselves, concerns of others, and those who have asked us for prayer in a place of trust in life. And the prayer chaplains do not make any affirmation. These dear folks who are struggling in life, we banish away all their cares and concerns. That's not what it is. That's not how we hold people in prayer. We hold them with a trust in the ongoing power and love of God, that they will find their way. And as they take that first, perhaps baby step forward in regaining that light that the woman spoke of, I struck another match to regain that light. We'll be there. If not physically, we'll be there in consciousness. And you can do that. I have friends that live in the area in St. Louis that was so damaged by the recent tornado. And of course, that is only one place in the world that is suffering. And just holding those individuals that at this point they don't know what's next, what to do. And whether you know them personally or they're strangers to you, you can hold them in prayer and say the goodness of God is upon you. It will find, as Holly and Jimmy sang, it will find its expression. God's power and good and love and care is expressed what? Through our hands, through our presence. How we reach out to assist. And as the song says, James, they may be little hands, but they're my hands. I can do something. A great 19th century theologian said, you can't do everything, but you can do something. And because you can't do everything, don't let it prevent you from doing the something that you can do. A little baby step. So let us take an opportunity. I want to invite you to close your eyes, be at peace for a few moments, and we're going to do something a little different. I invite you to hear my voice as I speak, and hear it as if it were the compassionate voice of the eternal Spirit. And close your eyes. Think about some concern upon your heart, something that's happened in your life that was unexpected. You want to try to find an explanation, but like Job, there seems no explanation. Just rest for a moment and hear this voice deep within you. I hear your experience of loss. You have the right to your feelings about it. You are not alone, ever. I am with you. You did not cause this loss. It is not your fault. You are not to blame. You can go beyond your suffering. Not by forgetting the loss or denying its importance. However, you can take a little step toward focusing on dreams you still have. New dreams you will one day have. You can focus on the family and friends who will always love you. You can carry on with living and recognize you are a part of the cycle of life. Be not afraid, for I am with you always. So great is my love before you. And as you're ready, allow your attention to return to this world of outer activity, recognizing that you're seated among friends who respond to you with faith, who empower you because they hold a belief in what is possible in your life. And say, thanks be to God that it is so, that I am always in the embrace of God. And as our ushers come forward to help bring our service to a graceful conclusion, I invite you to consider your gifts. It is a sacred service, a sacred act to offer support to a greater community than your individual life. And that's what giving is. And I invite you to join with me in our offertory statement together. God gives abundantly. I receive thankfully and give again generously. This is the bounty of God, and we send it forth with wisdom and joy.